Now we're going to see one of the pieces of material, and this material is designed to give the child the study of size. Until the child's attention is focused definitely on a material which will enable him to study size, he very often goes through life almost unaware of it. You can be very unaware of the things around you, even if they're the very common qualities, things even like color, which is such a dominant quality, unless the adults are interested in it, and you yourself get some work with it. Now here with this material, the child then will be studying size, and he will learn to judge sizes. And gradually he will reach an abstract conception of size, which will lead him on to being interested in observing his environment and observing it more intelligently. You couldn't possibly explain size to a child, you see, so again, it isn't any use, that's why I say you can't use speech, but by using a piece of self-correcting material, you see, he will become aware in time. Now, here we have a block of plainly varnished wood, and you will see that the material must isolate the factor that you're studying. Here we want the child's attention to focus on size, and so we eliminate, by neutralizing them, the other qualities. Then no color is involved. If these were painted red and green and orange, then the child's attention would be hit by color, and he probably wouldn't notice size. So this very nicely designed piece, just plainly varnished wood, and the quality that stands out is size. Now there are 10 cylinders in this block, each with a little knob to hold them by, and any two in succession, it's an exact difference between any two in succession, is 1/2 centimeter in height, 1/2 centimeter in width, 1/2 centimeter in length. So that is the difference between any two in succession. So this is the largest one, this would be the smallest. So grade down. Now, some of you have a little difficulty in thinking of length, height, width, when it's something that is round. See? But if I was talking about this table, I would say this was length, and this was width, and this was height. Yes? And length and height can be the same, or length, same measurement, or length, width, and height can be the same. If you have a cube, the length, the width, the height are the same, aren't they? Now, if you have something that's round, here's your height, and this is length, and this is width. Naturally, wherever you take your measurement of width, it will be different, because it's narrower here than it is here. And your widest is through the center, the diameter, and your longest point is through the center, the diameter. So when I say this one differs by 1/2 centimeter from the next one, I'm talking about the width or the length through the diameter. All right? Now, if we have 4 of these blocks, this one I've just shown you, it differs in 3 ways, on all the 3 dimensions. And this one again, which looks exactly the same, differs in 3 ways, 1/2 centimeter in height, length, and width between any two in succession. But the gradation goes the opposite way. Here your tall one is your fat one, and here your tall one is your short one. Here the thin one was short, and here the thin one is tall. So both of those differ on 3 dimensions. we give the child something to study, we start him with something that's fairly easy, and then we make it progressively more difficult so that he gets a finer and finer perception and the sense is really trained. Now here with this one then, again we have our 10, the block looks the same, they're the 10 cylinders, but they are all the same height. So they only differ in width and length. So if there are only two differences, it must be a little harder in the blocks where there are three differences. And this fourth block, the cylinders differ only in height. That's only one difference. You see, and they're 1/2 centimeter in height between any two in succession. If that's the tallest, then this one is the shortest. Now this one is very much the hardest. And when you look at the top, you see the holes are all the same circumference. So again, you don't get any help there. This one is so much more difficult than the other three that I don't bring this one into the classroom. I keep it in the stock cupboard, which is somewhere else in the school, until some of the children are doing the first three easily, because it's too difficult for them if they get it too soon. So there's that progression in difficulty. Now, when you're going to give a lesson to the child, you just bring one block to the table and you take one of the two sets that differ in all three dimensions, because they would be the easiest. And you sit next to your child and you put the block in front of the child, and then you're going to hold the block. Remember, I've spoken about the importance of training the hands. So you're going to hold the knob using the first two fingers and thumb. Now those two fingers and thumb are of great importance in the use of most tools, like the pencil or the scissors, the needle. Most of the tools for carpentry, they're very important. They need to learn to coordinate together. So you hold the knob of each cylinder with those two fingers and thumb. You lift a cylinder out and you put it on the table in front of the block where the child can see it. If you put it behind the block, you would be able to see it, but the child who's much shorter than you wouldn't be able to really see it. You must think of all these little points, they do matter. And then you just take the cylinders out rather slowly and methodically and noiselessly, holding them the right way, pausing between each, and you put them on the table in front of the block. And as you put them down, you put them in different positions so that they're all mixed up. Now I'm going to lift the block up so that you can see them. You see? They're just mixed up like that. You wouldn't have to lift the block up for a child, as he would be able to see. And then you would let him see that you were definitely choosing. You take one, and in putting it back, again, you bring it exactly over the hole and let it down silently. You mustn't shuffle it around. You see, you must be very exact in your movements. And they are returned to the block. Now, I must confess that I've never been able to take them all out with any child, because you take one or two out and the child is doing it as well. You see, it's so obvious to the child. In fact, the other day when there was an article in the paper here, and the journalist came to take a photograph, and he said to me, "I want a photograph of you with the children." So I picked up one of these and I went over to the child education department, and there was a little girl of 2.5 there, so I invited her to sit at the table with me. She'd never seen me in her life. She got a chair very happily and sat there, and I put the cylinder down, and I was just going to begin showing her when she just started away as happily as anything. I didn't even take one out. And then suddenly she felt doubtful, so she turns and looks at me with her mouth open. You know, that's just the moment he chose to snap her. Sort of asking permission, as it were. And she went on using them for a very long time. And then there was one little one of only 11 months there, and he came over, stood by the table, and absolutely wanted them. And she wouldn't let him have them. So, right at the end, when her mother was coming for, I did persuade her to let him have them. I wouldn't have done that in a classroom, but I felt he had to have a turn. And interestingly enough, he did what all children of that age did. He took one out and promptly put it in his mouth. And that one got snapped. And we must realize, you know, that the lips are very, very sensitive. They're one of the areas of the body most sensitive to touch. And children of that age, they put the things in their mouths not because they're interested in the taste, but because they are judging touch with the lips. The lips, the elbows, the fingertips, you know, the most sensitive part. So it was really rather nice the way it went straight to his mouth, and he was equally intrigued with them. So he was a bit too young. Well, so if the child was to take over like that, you see, and was obviously understanding what to do, you would just slip away and leave her, or him. Now, if at first the child doesn't do it like you, they haven't got these reasoning powers, you, I think, would naturally start at one end and take them in order, fill up in order. They take any one and put it in, which is something which is much more difficult. See? And they're bound to get some in the wrong places. If they could get them right the first time, well, you would have given it too late. It would be too easy for them. And so they do make many mistakes, and they don't necessarily see their mistakes. But it doesn't matter. That's why I say don't correct them. If you went down every time they put one in the wrong hole and corrected them, they would just give up working. It seemed too difficult. But if they do that, there'll always be at least one, you see, that won't fit in. So then they find at the end that they haven't got them all in, and each child does something different. Some begin changing them around, some take all out and start again. Doesn't matter. But until they've got them all in the right holes, the last one will not fit in. And the children will work with these for a very long time. And the interesting thing is that they don't work in the same way as we work. When we work, our aim is to get a job done, to get it finished. But a child's aim is to develop himself, develop his powers. And so, having spent perhaps half an hour getting these right, getting them all back in their right places, the child will immediately take them out and begin all over again. You see? And it was when a child was working with these that Dr. Montessori first began to understand how a child did really concentrate. She had this little boy who worked for nearly an hour and a half, and even when they played music, it didn't disturb him, because they would concentrate with whatever's going on. And you will know that your children who have had this very happy, easy home and this right upbringing, because they have these powers of concentration unspoiled. And they will spend a long time in one piece. And they'll take that day after day and do it many, many times. Now, naturally, at first, they don't necessarily hold them properly, and possibly they're very noisy. Their handling depends very much on what they've had from their parents at home. I think the more cultured the family is, the better the movements. I think it's one sign of culture that people then develop better movements, quieter movements. We used to have the term gentleman or gentlewoman, didn't we? Well, it meant just what it said. meant that you were gentler, that you were quieter, you had these better movements. So it didn't really mean class. It was a very good term. So that if you have a child who's being very noisy, you see, then you want to give a lesson in how to be quiet, but you mustn't interrupt the child when he's working. But the next day, before he starts, you take the cylinder down to his table and you put it in front of him and you say, now, you listen. You listen. I'm going to take this one out and put it on the table and you won't hear anything at all. Are you listening? Are you listening? Yes? See, you didn't hear it, did you? Now I'm going to take the next one out. You listen again. There, you didn't hear that one, did you? Could you do it? Shall I listen to you? You take that one out and I'll listen. Now they love this. Oh, that was pretty quiet. Take this one out. Now you have that little practice. Now, you listen to me. I'm going to put this one back. See? You didn't hear anything. You put this one back. Now listen. This one. Yes. Now perhaps you can remember. See how quiet you can be. And you just give him this idea of working quietly. Very often, you know, they'll come up to you the next day and they'll say, come and listen to me. Because they do love that lesson and they always need the repetition. So whenever they ask you to, you always go. And in the same way, at a different time, you can give a lesson in handling. Now, you see I've got 2 fingers and a thumb. See? Let me see you. Yes? Now, I can hold that knob with those 2 fingers and that thumb. You watch. Like that. See, and I can hold this knob with those 2 fingers and that thumb. Take them out and put them back that way. Now, where's your hand? That's right. That finger and your thumb. See if you can do it. See? And so, see? Did you take this one out? Yes, but you take the tiny one out. Yeah. And so you stress this correct way of holding. For some children who still may have this infantile grasp that they should be losing at about a year of age. They've gone with that far too long because they're not helped at home to hold things the right way. Now, if when he's using the material he forgets and holds it the wrong way or uses it noisily, you don't say anything. You see? You can have another little practice when he's not using it, but you don't correct him when he's actually working. Because when he's concentrating, he's apt to forget. Well, having given a lesson with that first one, the child really helps himself to any of the first 3. They're kept in the classroom. And when some of your children are really perfect doing those first 3 easily, then the 4th one comes into the classroom and you can't prevent it. Some children take it before they're really ready for it. But the control is not quite so good. You see, every cylinder will fit into every hole, and you have to be able to see that that one stands up and that one is sunk in. So the control isn't so absolute. And you will find when you come to practice with it, this one is much the hardest. Now, are there any questions you'd like to ask on that?
What was the age?
Well, I did say at the beginning, the age is 2.5 to 5 for all this work. It depends very much on when you get your children. 2.5 is a very good age. I think they begin to come to nursery schools at about that age, don't they?
When you said to re-demonstrate, now do you wait, if they're holding them wrong, if they're being noisy, do you wait to do it the next time to re-demonstrate, or do you re-demonstrate?
Well, you make a mental note. That child needs a lesson, and possibly the same morning you might take it out with him, or the next day, whenever you have time. You see, but you notice your children. When you're thinking over them in the evening, you remember which ones need a lesson on what. You see, and you fit your lessons in. As I say, some of them like you to have the lesson with you several times. They come and ask for it. They love you to listen to them being quiet. And once their attention is drawn to noise, you find that they begin to be quieter over everything. And I think this is why people are always saying a Montessori classroom is such a quiet place. Everybody's talking, everybody's moving. Some children may be laughing, but nobody is banging and making rough noises, which is the difference. So therefore it seems a very peaceful room. And as I say, the teacher is the kingpin. She has to be quiet and not bang about. And be careful of her movements. And his movements now is... Yes?
What if the child uses both hands? Is that important?
No, because sometimes, usually at 2.5, the handedness is not necessarily fixed, decided. A lot of children, mainly in the beginning, use either hand, don't they, if you notice? And it's important to leave them alone. At some point, sometimes it's 3, sometimes it's 4, sometimes it's earlier. At some point, the child has practically always established either left-handed or right-handedness. With a few children are really ambidextrous. And if we leave them alone, most are more ambidextrous than we think.
Would you correct him if he's taking them out 2 at a time?
I don't think so, no.
What if they're throwing from the floor?
Oh, come on, woman, helps me. Well, naturally, I mean, if you always correct bad activity, or if he was using them for fantasy play, I would stop him. See, because they're not aeroplanes, they're not ships, and some children have got so geared to fantasy play that they can do nothing else. They go about all day with a boom, 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 boom. I can't make the noise they make with a gun, and 2 fingers, and a blank comes over their faces, and they go on like that by the hour. You see, or some other form of fantasy, or being a chuff, 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 chuff by the hour. You can see there's no progression. You can see by the look on the face that nothing's happening with the mind. So we don't let them use them for fantasy. It soon gets spoiled.
I'm curious as to how you show this child to retrieve the short cylinder from the tall hole, on particularly the block that differs just
If they put the little cylinder in a tall hole, the only way you can remedy it is by turning the whole thing upside down.
Which is very easy.
Well, and that doesn't happen in the exercises we've done up to date. But when a child is really perfect at 4, using 1 at a time, then you can give him 2 together, any 2. You put them together like this, and he mixes both sets in the middle, and then it's much harder. He has to get them back in the right places. And it's then that the little one sometimes gets put in the big hole, because the circumference of the 2 holes are the same. But having happened once, it doesn't often happen the second time. And then you don't want to hurry the stages. You see, he can go on using these for a very long time. And when he's doing those, any 2 perfectly, then he can have any 3. You put them in a triangle, and he mixes all 3 sets in the middle. Has returned to the right place. And finally, he has all 4 sets. And then he has them in a square with them all mixed in the middle. Now that is very difficult. And if you try it, you'll find how difficult it is, especially because a child doesn't work quite as we do. We would start filling up one block probably and start from one end and look for the ones in order. But he picks up any cylinder and looks around and puts it in place, you see, which is, I think, a harder thing to do. So he becomes increasingly able to judge size. But you don't want to hurry the stages. The aim with any of the material is never to see how quickly a child can do it. This has been a great mistake in education, to see how fast people can learn. You see, and that's absolutely wrong. Quick growth is bad growth. You learn quickly, you forget quickly. And it's through these hours of sort of patient work that you build up your ability, which is an ability that stays with you, to understand and judge size. It's an ability that some of us have and some of us simply have not got. I was on a jury once, and it was a motoring case, and one of the witnesses said that the car was about 40 yards away from the child who ran across the road. The child who was knocked down. And then the opposing lawyer said, "How can you judge that, jury? Are you able to judge distance like that?" And the judge said to this man, "Tell me the length of the courtroom." And this man just took one look at the courtroom. He said, "So many yards long and so many yards wide." And the judge says, "You're absolutely right, I accept your testimony." But you know, how many people could do that? You know, it's an ability some people have built up through using the faculty, and some people just haven't got it. So you can only get it through really long patient work. So the aim is never to get them to do it quickly. The aim is to encourage them to work for as long as they can, as long as they will. So they perfect their senses. They build up abstract conceptions of size, and they also perfect the sense. Because at this age we can increase our powers of hearing, of feeling, of tasting, of seeing. Whereas after these first 5-6 years we can't. We haven't learnt to hear very soft sounds, but we can't, because we have reached the optimum development of which the ear is capable. So there are the 2 sides: perfecting the senses, taking in knowledge through the senses, and judgment, and reaching these abstract conceptions, in this case size. And the children will give you proof of how they do notice the environment afterwards. Again, when I was doing my practice teaching in a very, very poor school in London, there were about 50 of these children. There was this little boy, and the carpenter came to mend a pane of broken glass, and it was a really big pane. And this little boy, who was 4, looked at the pane of glass and looked at the hole, And he kept looking at the pane and then looking at the hole. And then he said to the carpenter, "That's too small." And the carpenter said, "Oh no, Sonny, it isn't. I measured it." Sure enough, when he came and put this great pane in, it was about a quarter of an inch too short. No, that was fantastic. I couldn't believe it. You see. But, so they do observe once they have the knowledge with which to observe. Until you have the knowledge, you can't. All right then? Nothing else you want to ask? Well, that's the piece for this morning, and any of you who are not at the lab, as we finished rather soon, haven't we? Had better have a look at this, and then if we take your usual time, we break in the lab a bit early, shall we? Begin at about 4 or 12:30.
Beg your pardon, did you say a quarter after 12?
Yes, between 1/4 and 12:30. An hour's enough, isn't it? And the lab is in the next room, all right?